Palestine-Israeli occupation forces carried out new massacres despite calls by international bodies for an immediate ceasefire. Local media reported that Tel Aviv regime's troops shelled residential areas in north, center and south of the Gaza Strip, killing dozens of innocent civilians. These actions take place despite the fact that the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, called on Sunday for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, which the Israeli army continues to bombard after 7 months. According to a preliminary balance sheet, the current Israeli aggression has resulted in 34,971 Palestinians killed and 78,641 wounded, figures that are expected to be even higher since many of the victims are under the rubble of the buildings that have been destroyed by the Israeli bombardment. Meanwhile, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Middle East reported that at least 300,000 refugees are fleeing the city of Rafah after the start of the Israeli occupation army's ground invasion. The agency criticized the forced and inhumane displacement of the Palestinian people. This also comes at a time when Israeli troops occupied the border crossing that represented the only gateway to Gaza for food, medicine and fuel. The Palestinian authorities also denounced the killing of more than 140 journalists and media workers in the framework of the Israeli offensive against the Gaza Strip. The Government Information Office in Gaza explained that the latest victim was a photojournalist who lost his life this Saturday along with his wife and child in a bombardment of his home in the Jabalia refugee camp. According to reports, Israeli forces have targeted dozens of the headquarters of their profession's institutions, including the offices of Al Jazeera, Palestine TV, the Ma'an news agency, as well as the newspaper Al-Quds and Al-Ayyam. The actions against the union have resulted in the murder of 143 Palestinian journalists since October 7, 2023. The Union of Palestinian Journalists criticized the silence of the International Criminal Court in the face of the Israeli aggressions. The Palestinian Health Ministry announced the number of bodies found in mass graves in hospitals in the Gaza Strip has risen to 520. Health authorities reported that in the courtyard of the Al-Shifa medical compound, 80 bodies were found buried in the 3 mass graves, 4 of which were identified as health officials. Investigations by the health authorities indicated that some of the victims were tortured, while others have bullet wounds inflicted at close range. In this regard, the Palestinian resistance movement, Hamas, blamed Israel for digging these graves to hide the lifeless bodies of Palestinian victims killed during these attacks on medical centers in Gaza. Also in Palestine, at least 28 civilians were killed in shelling by Israeli troops over the past 24 hours in the Gaza Strip. According to medical reports, these events also wounded about 69 people. One of the Israeli raids targeted the town of Al-Sawaida in the center of the Gaza Strip and another one in the north of the Nusayrat camp. According to local health authorities, the number of Palestinians killed by Israel since October 2023 rose to 34,097, while the number of wounded stood at 78,641. However, they warned that these figures could be even higher as many of the victims remain trapped under the rubble. In the Swedish city of Malmö, protesters stand in solidarity with Palestine and demand the expulsion of Israel's representative from the Eurovision Song Contest. Demonstrators who advocate for an indefinite ceasefire in the Gaza Strip rejected the attack of Tel Aviv against innocent civilians. When alluding to the participation of Israel in the continental competition, protesters highlighted the irony in trying to hide their genocidal actions with artistic expressions inherent to the human condition, which the Zionist regime lacks. Furthermore, they called for the contest to ban the Israeli representative and recalled the use of the measure against Russia during the 2023 edition of the event, due to the beginning of its special military operation in Ukraine.
I feel it's unfair because Russia was kicked out last year and it's the same thing happening right now, but what is the difference? Because we are Arab, because we're not from Europe, is this the difference? We're not white, we do not have blue eyes, like what is the difference? Russia was kicked out because it invaded Ukraine, and it should be the same to Israel because it invaded Gaza.
We're not against the Eurovision, we're against that Israel take part in this Eurovision. We don't want Israel, their representant for the Israeli state, to be in Malmö. but we don't. We're not against the Eurovision as Eurovision Song Contest, but we are against that Israel is taking part because of what's happening in Gaza.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Spain, Catalan parliamentary elections advanced with a turnout of more than 26.9%, a 4-point increase over the 2021 turnout. More than 5,700,000 Catalans go to the polls to participate in the Catalan parliamentary elections. More than 8,000 polling stations were set up to elect the 135 deputies who will make up the Parliament of Catalonia and will be open until 8 o'clock in the evening local time. According to the authorities, the results will be announced in the hours following the closing of the polls. These elections are being held under allegations of irregularities such as the theft of copper wiring in the trains of Barcelona, which has delayed the movement of voters since the early hours of this Sunday. In other news, new Ukrainian attack on Russia's Belgorod region leaves at least 19 people injured. According to local authorities, the Ukrainian attack targeted a 10-story residential building, which was damaged according to sources. Minutes after the attack, the roof of the building collapsed, falling on rescuers who were carrying out rescue works. According to reports, more than 16 people have been rescued from inside the building so far, and search teams are continuing rescue efforts to pull out the victims trapped under the rubble. Meanwhile, on Saturday, at least 4 people were killed and 11 wounded in Lugansk region following an attack by Ukrainian troops on an oil depot. According to local authorities, the attack was allegedly carried out with cluster munition missiles, causing a series of fires in the area that damaged residential buildings, machinery, and civilian vehicles. According to the authorities, an investigation was launched into the attack because it was carried out with ballistic missiles supplied by the United States. In Venezuela, thousands of people took to the streets of the state of Carabobo in support of President Nicolás Maduro's government. On Saturday, Venezuelans expressed their rejection of the coercive measures imposed by the U.S. government on the country. Citizens reaffirmed their unwavering support of Maduro's policies implemented for the well-being of Venezuelans. The demonstration was led by National Assembly President Jorge Rodriguez and Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. On Friday, Colombian President Gustavo Petro spoke of creating a national agreement to be signed at popular assemblies. He launched the proposal at the closing ceremony of nationwide program Government with Popular Neighborhoods, held in the city of Cali, southwest of Colombia. President Petro emphasized that such an agreement cannot be made at the Nariño Government Palace, but that it has to spring from the grassroots levels. In his message, he invited the Colombian oligarchy to join in this proposal for the construction of a true democracy.
What we want is a national agreement, but not for the government to kneel, or for the people to be silenced. That is not a national agreement. The national agreement we want to build is to accept that now Colombia is going through a phase of democratic reforms, of social reforms, to settle the great outstanding debt with those still in poverty.
Peru is undergoing another institutional crisis. The Peruvian Prosecutor's Office has initiated an investigation on President Dina Boluarte following the arrest of her brother Nicanor Boluarte. The president's sibling is accused of being the leader of a criminal organization called the Shadow Waikis, allegedly involved in the appointment of prefects and sub-prefects throughout the country. President Boluarte has remained silent for a week, even after the arrest took place. However, the Public Prosecutor's Office has opened proceedings against her and against her Interior Minister, Walter Ortiz, for deactivating the team of prosecutors against corruption in the midst of the Shadow Waikis plot. Despite the complex panorama, the president's spokesman says she does not intend to resign. We have a final break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on the screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final break, and go away. Welcome back. The Taliban Refugee Ministry confirmed Sunday that at least 315 people have been killed by heavy flooding in northern Afghanistan. The ministry also reported that over 1,630 people injured during recent flooding in several provinces of the country, particularly Catalan. Authorities added that at least 665 homes were totally destroyed by the rising waters and that the death toll is expected to rise. Since mid-April, floods have killed about 100 people in 10 of Afghanistan's provinces, with no region entirely spared. Farmlands have been submerged in a country where 80% of the more than 40 million people depend on agriculture to survive. In Brazil, authorities issued a high hydrological and geological risk alert in Rio Grande do Sul for this Sunday, May 12th. Heavy rains could trigger landslides and floods that could occur throughout the Brazilian state. In view of this, the authorities asked citizens not to return to their homes, since forecasts foresee another cold front and the growth of a low-pressure area as a result of the storms. So far, the Brazilian government has registered around 618,000 people affected, 136 deaths, and more than 2 million citizens impacted by the climate crisis. In Ecuador, residents of the town of Olón opposed the felling of mangroves for the construction of a real estate project in which the wife of President Daniel Noboa is a shareholder and where the president's family owns properties. From Quito, our correspondent Henry Pillajo gave us the details in the following report.
In the town of Olón in the province of Santa Elena on the coast of the country, a real estate project is to be built in a mangrove swamp that includes a protective forest. The executing company is Venizon S.A., where one of the shareholders is Lavinia Valbonisi, wife of the president.
We have called attention from such a small community as Olón precisely because of all these ingredients of having big names and names connected to politics. But these outrages and abuses are happening all over the country.
Local residents denounced the degradation of the mangrove swamp, as well as the felling of some species of trees for the construction of this real estate project, which has all the environmental permits approved in a short period of time. A project that, according to local residents, has a high environmental impact.
We are not opposed to development. We are opposed to development that privileges rent against life and nature. What they are doing is attacking the future life and future peace of mind of many people who chose Olón as a life plan to retire. That is what we are against.
At the moment, the management by the machinery is already disturbing the ecosystem habitat. All animals are already being disturbed in these early stages of soil movements.
The government from the private media minimized these allegations and accused them of politicizing this case.
It is an eminently political issue of a systematic attack against the image of the President of the Republic, and it is regrettable that this has to escalate to the National Assembly.
Sometimes these scandals have to do with the need of political parties that see themselves outside the field, speaking in football terms, that saw the 9-2 dropping in the popular consultation.
Meanwhile, the inhabitants of Olón, as well as environmental defenders and activists, denounced the police and military presence in different communities that raise voices of protest in defense of their territories. Intimidating acts of the public forces are becoming increasingly frequent in the government of President Noboa.
In Olón, They have a deed on the 23rd of September, 2023. They come to the government. In less than 10 days, they have an environmental permit, and now they send the military and the police to execute it. With what money do we pay the military? With our taxes. But they are making them useless for their business. It is not the only case with the Noboa family. It is the case of Ingabeo and 9 other communes on the coast.
Through complaints from the villagers of Olan about the felling of the mangrove swamp, led the public prosecutor's office to initiate a preliminary investigation into the real estate project in which the president's wife and people close to his government are involved.
The Long Live Venezuela Festival kicked off in Caracas with a large gathering featuring cultural expressions from all corners of the country to show the world the cultural richness of Venezuela.
Drums from all regions of the country, calypso and joropo from the plains, dancing devils, intangible heritage of humanity, and much joy, music and colors were present at Caracas Monumental Stadium for the World Festival. Long live Venezuela!
We have kept this tradition for the past 44 years. We celebrate St. John the Baptist, the May Cross. This is our culture. We love it. For us it is paramount. We feel happy and fulfilled with our culture and our traditions.
We have a very nice parranda. We sing the estribillo, the aguinaldo, the fulia, the malagueña, and the joda which have faded. But we have other cultural expressions like the huacharao dance, the burriquita, the iriste dance, the teresem bull, and many others such as the aguinaldo, the galeron. We play all kinds of genre.
Each cultural expression represents roots, the families that have kept such traditions, the histories of the towns where such traditions have survived, and a diversity of origin, whether African, indigenous, or Catholic.
It is very important to know where we come from. It is important to acknowledge the cultural heritage of our Afro-descendants.
It seems perfect to me because here in Venezuela we are full of joy, as it is manifested here this afternoon.
The festival also aims at acknowledging the people who keep all these musical traditions alive, and a national registry program has been undertaken to tend to their social needs.
First, we started by making a registry of all culturists across the country. We spent several weeks making that registry with the support of the Ministry of Culture, along with the movement We Are Venezuela, so that we may show Venezuela and the world the incredible amount of culturists we have, not only for drums, for the cuatro, the maracas, or the yen-era music.
Music and culture show the best face of Venezuela to the world.
The Venezuelan people aims at constantly improving itself through art, because art is diversity.
Venezuela is a country of peace, a country that strives to develop. Venezuela is not a country of war. We don't want war. As you can see here, people gathering to celebrate culture, art, music. But we do need a lot of support from all Venezuela's allies to have the U.S. economic sanctions removed. We do not mess with them. We don't even think of them. We are hard-working people.
The festival got underway with opening remarks by Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, and a great drone show portraying different cultural expressions. The festival will run until May 19. It gathers representatives from 25 guest countries, and its program includes some 400 presentations on stages in the states of La Guaira, Miranda, and in Caracas, the country's capital.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. And on a final note, many countries in the world are celebrating today Mother's Day. So from the teleSUR family, we wish you all a very happy Mother's Day. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.